Hi, my name is Jeyan. Belong to Department of Catering Science and Hotel Management of AJK College of Arts and Science. Today I would like to talk about some very basics about culinary science. So to begin with, the basic aim or intention of cooking. The basic aim of cooking is to see that the food cooked undergoes a physical and at times chemical changes that the end result is edible and acceptable. So I repeat, so the core objective of cooking is, or the aim, not objective, the aim of cooking is to see that some changes, both physical and sometimes chemical changes is happening into the ingredients whatever we are cooking, and that makes it edible and acceptable. Simple way to explain that is rice. Raw rice. Raw rice is in a hard texture it is having. So that is not edible as it is. So when we are cooking or when we are boiling it, what happens? Like it is becoming soft. So and it is becoming, there are chemical changes, physical changes happening. Physical is nothing but it is becoming soft. The texture from hard changes to soft. And the chemical change which is happening is like the change of carbohydrate. The early stage is in the starch form, and then it is changing to a soluble sugar form. That makes it edible as well as acceptable for a person. Now we just go for the major objectives of cooking. The first objective is it helps digest the food. The same rice example if you take. Raw rice, if you are consuming, definitely that is indigestible. That the body, our digestive system cannot digest it. But when you cook it, the texture changes, the consistency changes. There are a lot of physical changes happening, chemical changes happening, and it makes for the body to digest that food, and thereby it leads to metabolic processing, and all the nutrients can be absorbed by the body. Right? Not only for rice. Every food like meat or any other protein-rich food, egg or vegetables, anything you see, after cooking, it is easy to digest. So that's what we say, like I am having some indigestion. Digestion, the problem is immediately the doctor will say, will be asking like, what did you have yesterday? Then you will say, I had some food from outside. Then immediately come to conclusion that you had some food which is indigestible. Right? It's an uncooked food. Okay. The second objective is cooking makes it is easy to masticate the food items. It's easily to after cooking it is easy to masticate the food. Masticate, the word is complicated, but actually the real meaning is very simple. Breaking down into small particles. It's easy because you cannot chew something which is uncooked. When it is hard, we cannot chew something. Mastication, what is the teeth doing? It is mastication. It's breaking down that to small particles, so then it will be easy for you to swallow, and thereby the eating process will be completed. So that's one thing. Another thing is it enhances the flavor. Very, very important. We know we eat with our eyes, we eat with our nose, we eat with all our senses. All the senses are involved in the process of enjoying a food, right? We feel the texture of the food, we see the appeal of the food, everything. That flavor is one very, very important factor, right? So cooking releases various flavors which is present in the various ingredients what we are using. Say for example, flavor is nothing but it is due to the presence of some compounds present in the food. Right? We call it esters, aldehydes, so various higher alcohols, like there are various things are there. So when temperature goes up, when you cook it in higher temperature, these components will get evaporated and it is coming out. So when a hot food is coming to you, you get, yeah, it's a nice biryani. Without even seeing, you are saying that, yeah, somebody is cooking biryani. Because when it is, the heat goes up, the flavor comes out. So that will also lead to enjoyment of the food. So it enhances the flavor. Another objective is like cooking retains nutritive and flavoring ingredients. Okay, that is another one. Retains nutritive and flavoring ingredients. That means like basically when we consume a food, there are various purposes for the food. One is provision of nutrients to the body. Nutrients like the carbohydrate, the fat, minerals, metals, vitamins, all these things. Then flavoring ingredients. I told you already, like flavor is a very, very important aspect which is making us to enjoy the food. Cooking retains both. The sense, if you're properly cooking, the food is going to provide all the nutrients present in that ingredients what we are using to the body. Proper cooking. When you are cooking it properly, that's one important thing. At the same time, when you properly cook, the composition of all the ingredients together is going to give a beautiful aroma to the food that the person is going to enjoy. Another objective, the next objective is cooking gives a variety to the menu. Repeat, cooking gives a variety to the menu. As one could be cooked in variety, one item could be cooked in varieties of items. The sense, chicken is an ingredient. So we have n number of dishes can be made out of chicken. How? Through different modes of cooking. So we make chili chicken, we can make chicken 65, we can make a pepper chicken fry, or we can make a chicken masala, or a chicken curry, or a chicken biryani, or a chicken. The dominant ingredient is chicken, but what is changing is the cooking method. So cooking is an art, we always say. With that art, the same ingredient can be presented in various ways, so that means variety. So you're going to have an elaborate menu with the same item. Okay, we move to the next objective. Cooking places the eye and it is receptive to the palate and helps to stimulate the digestive juices. It's not a complicated thing, very simple. I already said we eat with all our senses. That's simply speaking, that's the real term, right? So in that, one of the most important thing is the palate appeal. Palate appeal. When you see a food, you should feel like trying that or eating that, right? So cooking is only contributing that palate appeal to a dish, right? So we have ingredients for a biryani. We have a lot of whole spices. We have some raw rice. We have some meat. We got some vegetables like the onion, tomato, all that. All these things I'm just keeping together. So all these things has to go in an order, in a proper way to the cooking vessel. Then only your final product, the biryani, is going to come out. That means the whole process we call it cooking. So cooking only is making that. I'm just going to put it in a bowl or something. I'm going to neatly decorate it and demold it, and on top I'm just keeping some decorative things and all that. We call it garnishes and all. It's all part of cooking. So I'm just giving a lot of garnishes, everything, and then presenting to the guest. Guests feel it from the eyes. The first thing I see the food, yeah, it look attractive, looking nice. I would like to try that. So that is also being provided by the cooking. In that, one more thing it's saying, it helps to generate the intestinal juices or digestive juices. Obviously, when you see a good food, honestly speaking, if your system is perfect, saliva will ooze out in your mouth. Am I right? Definitely saliva will come into your mouth. What is that saliva? Saliva is also a digestive juice. It's a very big, very first stage of eating process. So there it oozes out. Your taste buds will produce some. Because you saw the food, then your brain is identifying that. You are getting the flavor. All together, you are attracted to the food. We call it, what do you call it? Like, it's a kind of impulse thing. You see, this juices are being generated. Then same way, simultaneously, internally, without your knowledge, there are so many other juices also being produced by other organs. Your pancreas will produce something, your liver is going to produce something, your gallbladder may produce something. So a lot of even hydrochloric acid will get ready to fight with the food. All that will happen within your body when you see an attractive food. Why the food is so attractive? It is having a palate appeal because of a proper cooking. Again, I'm saying cooking is an art. So the next objective is cooking kills the germs present in raw food items. Obviously, one example I was telling, you go to the doctor with a stomach pain. The first question the doctor is going to ask you that, where you had the food yesterday. I'm repeating the same thing. Then you will say, wherever you will just think of it, morning into evening, what all I had. So when you are giving the list, doctor is going to pick out something. You said, like, I had some from the street, I had some chili chicken from the street vendor. You know, the street, like the cartwalas, from there I just bought some. He is fixing, doctor is fixing, that's the reason. Probably it's unhygienically cooked. Whether it is not cooked, maybe the chicken was not washed properly, or it may be cooked in an unhygienic oil, right? All together we can say that or it is cooked and kept in the open space. In the open space is cooked and kept below 70 degrees centigrade. We always say 70 degrees centigrade and above is the serving temperature for a food. Below that, what happens? Microorganisms can grow in it. Microorganisms can, if the food is not reaching that temperature, when you are cooking, if it is not reaching that temperature, microorganisms will not get killed. So what happens? When the person consumes it, he is going to have problem. This is what we call indigestion, food poisoning, and obviously it leads to various diseases. It can lead to various diseases. So this is a very dangerous thing. So never ever try uncooked food. Like, you can have uncooked food if it is recommended. Say for example a salad. It is recommended, it is edible, your body can manage, and it is properly washed, it is sterilized, then no problem. Otherwise, you need to cook that, and while cooking, the temperature should definitely go beyond 70 degrees centigrade. So cooking kills the germs present in raw food items. Another objective is cooking preserve food for a longer time. Preservation. Preserving, the word everybody knows. It's nothing but after cooking we are holding the food for long time, for some time. Say raw fish. Raw fish, if you are not keeping in the proper refrigerated temperature, or if you are not keeping in the freezer, or if you are not putting the ice or salt or something, it gets spoiled instantly. Maybe in an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, the raw fish will get spoiled. Obviously, we are getting fish which is aged for so many days, but because of a lot of other chemicals, that is a different issue. Here we are saying fresh fish can get spoiled without any kind of preservatives very fast. But the same fish, I am just marinating it with some proper ingredients, I am frying it, I am deep frying it. Morning and deep fry, maybe after 2 days also don't have to keep the refrigerator or anything. It will be safe. The food is going to be safe. That means its shelf life is increased. Okay? The food is preserved. All the microbes are killed by cooking, and then we have airtight container or something we are using. Definitely it can be kept for a long time. So cooking preserve food for a longer time. So these are the objectives of, we saw the aim of cooking. We also discussed the objectives of. Now we move to another topic that's another basic in culinary science. That is effect of cooking, or otherwise we can say effect of heat on while cooking. So we can say effect of cooking upon the 3 chief constituents of a food. Constituents of a food in the sense, the nutrients, we call it the nutrients, or the chemical things which are present in the food are called the constituents of the food. That everybody knows it. The dominating ones are protein, carbohydrates and fats. Now we see why we are cooking. That means why cooking is, otherwise we can say like we are, it's a systematic way of increasing the temperature or withdrawing the temperature, like that. That is the process of cooking. So when you are applying a certain heat to a food, or applying certain amount of heat to food, what happens? That's what we are seeing now. So in that the first constituent of food is protein. We see what happens when we are cooking food to protein. So we know the protein rich ingredients or protein-rich food we consume are meat. Everybody, the moment we say protein, the thing coming into your mind is meat, especially red meat. Then egg, obviously, egg is important. Then also we say a lot of pulses. Pulses are nothing but the various dals, the various kinds of grains we use. So that is also rich in protein. In that we see the major protein present in meat is called myosin. The protein which is present in egg is called albumin. The protein which is wheat is gluten. The protein which is dominant in pulses are legumin. These are the major proteins we consume in our regular diet, in our daily diet. So while a chef is going to cook something, he'll see what are the ingredients I'm going to use. Oh, these are the major ingredients. What is rich in that? Oh, these are protein-rich food items. So then he knows how the heat should be applied. So one thing I tell you, when temperature increases, the process which is happening in all these proteins is called coagulation. Coagulation is the process which is happening. It is nothing but the change of chemical composition, or the molecular formula is changing. The bonding between molecules are changing. So that makes the food soft, and in certain cases it makes the food solidified from liquid to solidification, but it is not hardening. But it should be done in the proper method, because high temperature can make the protein hard. So that's what I always say, slow cooking. In Western cuisine, it's very, very important. It will be written in the menu card, slow cooked lamb, or slow cooked beef rib, or slow cooked lamb loin, whatever, loin or sirloin, whichever it will be clearly mentioned. Their slow cooking is real slow cooking, because usually they go for a kind of cooking called casseroles or something. It's a thick bottomed vessels. In that all the ingredients are added, and that is kept in a slow flame for a long time, maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, like that it goes. So if say for example, if a rib of beef or a large cut with the meat is boiled or cooked in slow cooking, after the completion of the process, like when you lift it, the meat will be falling, from the bone. It will be so soft, because it's perfectly been cooked using a slow cooking method. Even our chefs, our Indian chefs do that, right? Then when they make a dal makhani or something, that even cook for 8 hours. There are some chefs who cook it for 7 to 8 hours. In very slow flame, thick bottomed vessels they use. It is changing because it is rich in protein, legumin. It is rich in black gram, is the dominant ingredient in that. So it is rich in legumin. It will be at its best when it is cooked in a very slow flame or slow temperature for a long time. Right? So in high temperature, it hardens. Then hardens means it shrinks. It shrinks and denatures fiber basically. The fiber shrinks. Then the person who's trying to, I told you, like one objective is mastication. So it may not be able to masticate. You cannot chew it. If you try to chew it, what happens, like it will not break. You can't swallow it. Sometimes you might have seen some meat is very hard. We'll say some meat is so hard, you may have to spit it out. The reason it is wrongly cooked. And such a food, if you consume also, it is indigestible. Your digestive system cannot digest it. It leads to indigestion. Like stomach upset and all that can happen. Now we see what is the impact of heat on carbohydrate. When we say carbohydrate, that's the major component of our food which is giving energy to us. Obviously, protein also releases a lot of energy, but carbohydrate is an instant energy releasing component present in the food. As far as South Indians are concerned, the moment you say carbohydrate, what is coming in your mind is rice. What is that? 90% of the rice is, the cooked rice may be carbohydrate. So usually carbohydrate is found in 3 dominant forms, three major forms. One is starch, another one is cellulose, the third one is sugar. So starch, as the name itself is saying, starch is usually found in the uncooked food. I've given the rice itself as an example. The rice, raw rice, it's so hard. You can't chew it. You can chew it if you struggle a lot for it. What is rich in that? It is starch. That means it's a form of carbohydrate. It is insoluble in nature. It is hard in nature. That means the molecules are having strong bond. So they are starch. By cooking, by raising the temperature, what happens is, especially by moist heat, we have two basic types of cooking. One is through moist heat cooking, another one is dry heat cooking. So moist heat cooking, example is boiled. So through moist heat cooking, this starch will be converted into soluble form. Soluble form. That means it will dissolve in water. Rice, you take some cooked rice, you nicely grind it. Right? You keep mashing it with something and then you taste it. When you taste it, you feel sweetness. Why? The sweetness is nothing but it is converted, it is dissolving the saliva. The sugar is dissolving in your saliva and you are getting that. So, in carbohydrate, the first one is starch. By moist heat, the starch will be converted into soluble form. Right? And further, if extreme heat is given, it will move to another solid, wrong substance. It is not recommended. There again, it should be cooked at the right stage, at the right way, with the right temperature. Then second one, cellulose. Cellulose is basically found in the plant particles. Right? In the plant particles, maybe you can say some root vegetables and all that. Some stem of certain vegetables is having cellulose. This is also very simple. Cellulose becomes soft, same like starch. Then sugar. Sugar, it's a big thing to learn. We call that confectionery weight and all that. If you start learning, there is so much to learn about sugar. Here we are only seeing one thing. What happens when you are applying heat to sugar? If it's a moist heat, like if it's with water, if you are heating sugar, what happens? It melts. The first thing is it dissolves. Not melts, it dissolves. And you are keep heating it. Then what happens? Then we say we have various kinds of consistency and all that. And when it's moving on the consistency, then it will start changing its color. First it was white in color. Then slowly it starts changing its color. Right? It is called a caramelization process, right? A browning process. And you keep heating it, it will turn brown and even it leads to a rich brown, dark brown in color. This stage we call caramel. That product is called caramel. It's no more sugar. It cannot go back. Now the caramel cannot go back to the earlier sugar form, because it is changed to another compound. It's called caramel, right? And further heating is only going to lead to carbonation. It's nothing but it will burn, it will become carbon dioxide, something it's going to evaporate. It will be vanished from your vessel. So that's one thing. That is about applying or effect of heat on sugar. Now we see another thing is the minerals, vitamins and all that. Nothing much is going to happen to these things like when you are cooking them in a moderate heat. Every time it is recommended the cooking to be done with a moderate heat. That's one thing. And one more thing is long cooking or unwanted cooking is also not necessary. Say for example our vegetables. Our vegetables are all rich in mineral salts. It has got a lot of vitamins. So, all the vitamins. So what happens? If you are just cooking it for a long time, right? You're saying, oh, it is becoming so. You can see the color is changing. And if you kept open, like, there are many things we may get evaporated. In moderate heat, moderate cooking, nothing will happen. Beyond that, too much of cooking can spoil various ingredients which is rich in mineral salts and vitamins. And the other ingredient or the dominant component of the food is fat. Fat is nothing but it's another organic compound which is present in your food. Right? They are long chains of organic compounds. So fat is solid ones, and oil is again the same thing which is coming, which is seen in the liquid form. So what happens to fat? So if it is heated in a high degree for a long time, it will melt. Right? It will be melting. It will change to liquid form, and that will be easily digestible. Say for example, fat is present in the meat also. There are many fat which is present in meat is not soluble, but it can dissolve. It's called dissolving when proper heat is applied to that. So in certain aspect, like when it is dissolved, for a normal person with the proper digestive system, it is digested. It moves to the liquid form. So we'll have a very quick recap. We started with describing the aim of cooking. The fundamental aim of cooking or intention of cooking is to see that the food cooked undergoes a physical and at times certain chemical changes, and whatever happens, the end result is edible and acceptable. And then we saw the major objectives of cooking. The primary objective, it is helping digestion. The other one we discussed was it is easy for mastication. Mastication means like breaking down to small particles. Then another objective is it is enhancing flavor. This also elaborately we discussed like what is flavor. And when you do the cooking, I was saying the example like when somebody is cooking biryani somewhere here, you sitting here and say that he is cooking biryani, but you haven't seen anything, you got any, in fact all your nose is saying, your brain is saying biryani is getting cooked. Okay, that's what. So flavor is again being enhanced by cooking. Another one we discussed was like it retains, the cooking retains nutritive and flavoring ingredients. Nutrients, we were discussing about the various nutrients. They are proteins, vitamins, minerals, metals, fat, carbohydrate. All that are given in the best form through cooking. All that are given in the best form through cooking to a person who consumes food. It is easy for him to, his body to absorb all that and utilize it. Then cooking gives variety to the menu. With the example of chicken I was telling, one chicken, hundreds of dishes you can prepare. So out of different modes of cooking, different types of cooking, different composition of ingredients, the same item can be put into 100 items in the same menu. So that's what. So that's another important thing. Then cooking, it places your eye. The word I used is palate appeal. The food should have some palate appeal. Today, all the chefs are concentrating on that, like plating. It has become a science of learning, a subject of learning. All the chefs are they keep practicing on it. Like, you can make a steak, anybody can make a steak, but how do you present it? That's more important. And what are the accompaniments you are giving along with that? This is all being driven by the mode of cooking, the cooking method. We say one plate is having boiled item, cooking places the eye. Telling like every chefs are focusing on that. The same steak you give to 5 chefs, the 5 chefs will give it in 5 different ways. Right? So the same plate is having food which is boiled, which is roasted, which is grilled, which is baked, like that. So different delicacies are being present in the same plate, and that the person is manufactured. That is only through perfect cooking art or cooking techniques. Then another one objective we discussed was it kills the germs. Germs are nothing but microorganisms. Very, very important. You have to make sure that We call it core temperature, like the star hotel chefs, what they usually do, they are always having a thermometer in their chef coat. When they sometimes, like randomly, they will be checking when before the food goes to the guest, they check the core temperature. Core temperature is nothing but the temperature at the center part of the food. They make sure that it is beyond 70 degrees centigrade. Otherwise, they will not allow the food to go to the guest. Because if it is at 70 degrees centigrade, it is safe because it is free from microorganisms. That's very important. Okay. Then another objective we discussed was like cooking is helping to preserve the food for a longer time. The example what I was saying is, the simple example was fish. Raw fish gets spoiled fast. If you do the fried, it can be a preservative. They say, for example, a pickle. A raw mango, you pick. Why do we do the pickling? Because we need to use the same ingredient, but that ingredient is not available. Certain seasonal food. Mango is a seasonal food. Mango is not available every time. For that, how do we preserve it? We preserve through pickling. It is a cooking method. So it is helping to increase the shelf life. Then we saw effect of cooking on the components of or the constituents of food, which are protein, carbohydrates and fats. And protein, what happens? It's process called coagulation, right? And coagulation is helping to make the food soften. It solidifies, but the texture is soft and person can chew that and save away. The digestion is also easy. Another thing, another ingredient, another constituent of food is carbohydrate. In that we saw starch, the insoluble carbohydrate form. By cooking from the insoluble form, it moves to soluble form. It's very easy for the digestive system to digest that. Then we saw cellulose, same process happens. Then we saw sugar. Sugar immediately, that's what happens is, when you heat it with water, it's called moist heat cooking method. When you heat it with water, what happens to it? It melts. First is, it dissolves. It dissolves. Then what happens? Slowly, some more changes is going to happen in that. You can see the color is changing. We call it pale or amber color and all that. From there, it moves to caramelization process. Caramelization is its carbon is going to dominate there. And in one stage, we call it caramel. And beyond that, when you do, it is only going to burn. Right? All that is the processes which is happening in sugar when we are cooking sugar. Then other less dominant constituents of food are proteins, vitamins, etc. These have to be retained in the food. For that, what we need to do is, it should be cooked in a moderate heat in a proper way. Sometimes people say, cook it with the lid. That's good. Sometimes certain things you have to cook with the lid. So it's a flavor lock and at the same time nutrient lock. Sometimes things will not get escaped from the food. Right? So they call it like a flavor locking. So in moderate heat, these other constituents, the less important constituents, are retained in the food. Okay, and the last thing we saw is fat. Obviously, very simple. In high degree for a long time, fats undergo partial decomposition, and the fatty acids and glycerol, glycerol are produced. These are digestible. The fatty acids and glycerol is produced through heat, in fact. Okay, thank you all.